Most people assume that by 80, the mind is mostly gone. But there's a group of people who reach 80 with sharper memories than the average 50-year-old. Tested, documented, confirmed by neuroscience. And after 25 years of research, scientists finally understand why.
For decades, researchers at Northwestern University in Chicago have been studying a very unusual group of people. They're over 80 years old, and on standardized memory tests, the same tests used to assess adults in their 50s, they perform at the same level or better, not slightly below, equal or better. Scientists name them SuperAgers. And what makes this research so compelling is not just the cognitive performance, it's what happens when scientists examine their brains directly, through imaging, through biological markers, and in several cases, through direct post-mortem analysis of donated brain tissue. What they found inside those brains was not what anyone expected. In October 2025, Northwestern published a landmark perspective article in Alzheimer's and Dementia, the Journal of the Alzheimer's Association, summarizing 25 years of SuperAger findings. The conclusion was both clear and genuinely surprising. Exceptional cognitive longevity is not primarily a matter of genetics. It's a matter of specific neurobiological mechanisms, and those mechanisms are shaped in large part by how people live. My name is Dr. Nathan Cole. This is Hidden Health Protocol. Let's go inside the SuperAger.
Let me start with what the brain imaging actually shows, because this is where the research becomes genuinely remarkable. When scientists take MRI scans of SuperAgers' brains and compare them to the brains of typical adults the same age, the difference is immediately visible. The average 80-year-old brain shows significant cortical thinning, particularly in the prefrontal cortex and the hippocampus. These are the regions responsible for memory, focus, and executive function. They shrink, they thin, they lose connectivity. This is considered the normal trajectory of aging. SuperAgers' brains don't follow that trajectory. Their cortical thickness, the density of the brain tissue that does the actual thinking, is preserved at levels more consistent with adults in their 50s than their 80s. Their hippocampi are larger, their neural connectivity is richer, and perhaps most significantly, their brains contain substantially higher numbers of a specific type of neuron called von Economo neurons, large spindle-shaped cells located in the anterior cingulate cortex that are associated with social awareness, empathy, and rapid intuitive decision-making. SuperAgers have more of these neurons than average adults half their age. And here's the critical question the research spent 25 years trying to answer. Why? The Northwestern researchers identified two distinct mechanisms that explain how SuperAgers maintain their cognitive function into advanced age. They called them resistance and resilience. And understanding the difference between them changes how you think about brain aging entirely. Mechanism 1. Resistance. Some SuperAgers simply don't accumulate the proteins most strongly associated with Alzheimer's disease, amyloid beta plaques and tau tangles. Their brains, when examined after death, show little to none of the buildup that is typically present in adults their age. They resist the biological process that drives most age-related neurodegeneration. Their brains never had to fight the battle because the threat never arrived in significant amounts. What protects against amyloid and tau accumulation? The research points to the same factors we've been tracking throughout this series. Low systemic inflammation, a well-functioning glymphatic system, the brain's overnight cleaning mechanism, and sustained cardiovascular fitness, which maintains cerebral blood flow and the delivery of oxygen and nutrients to brain tissue. Mechanism 2. Resilience. The second group of SuperAgers is equally fascinating and in some ways more instructive. Their brains do show amyloid plaques and tau tangles, sometimes in significant quantities, but those proteins don't affect their cognitive function the way they do in most people.
Their brains have built sufficient reserve, enough neural connectivity, enough synaptic redundancy, enough structural density that the damage doesn't cross the threshold of functional impairment. Think of it like a bridge. A bridge with twice the structural capacity can sustain damage that would collapse a standard bridge and still carry full traffic. SuperAger brains have more bridge, more reserve, more redundancy. And that reserve, that cognitive buffer, was built over decades through specific behaviors, specific inputs, specific choices that most people either didn't know about or didn't prioritize. So what do SuperAgers actually do? What does their behavioral profile look like? The Northwestern research, combined with supporting studies from other institutions, has identified several consistent patterns. Let me go through the most significant ones, because some of them are not what most people expect. First, they pursue effortful, uncomfortable experiences. This is the finding that surprises people most. SuperAgers don't just stay mentally active in comfortable, familiar ways. They consistently engage in activities that feel genuinely difficult, learning new instruments, new languages, new skills that require sustained cognitive effort. The key word is effortful. Passive mental activity, watching television, scrolling, even reading in a familiar genre, does not produce the same neural benefit. It's the experience of cognitive struggle, of pushing against the edge of current ability, that drives the formation of new synaptic connections and maintains cortical density. Dr. Sandra Weintraub, the lead researcher on the Northwestern SuperAger study, described it this way: the activities that benefit the brain the most are the ones that feel mentally exhausting. If it feels easy, it probably isn't building much. Second, they maintain deep social connections. SuperAgers are consistently described as highly social and outgoing, not superficially social, deeply engaged with other people in ways that involve emotional complexity, conflict resolution, and genuine intimacy. The neuroscience behind this is direct. Rich social engagement activates the same anterior cingulate cortex that houses the von Economo neurons found in abundance in SuperAger brains. Social connection literally exercises the neural architecture that SuperAgers are best at preserving. Third, they maintain cardiovascular fitness throughout their lives. Not extreme athletic performance, consistent, sustained cardiovascular activity, the kind that elevates heart rate, increases cerebral blood flow, and stimulates BDNF production, maintained across decades, not just in youth. A 25-year longitudinal study published in 2026 found that a single consistent observation separated adults with superior memory at 80 from those with average or declining memory. Decades of sustained aerobic activity, not diet alone, not cognitive training alone. Cardiovascular fitness, maintained consistently, was the single most reliable predictor. Fourth, they treat sleep as non-negotiable. SuperAgers prioritize deep sleep with a consistency that researchers describe as almost uniform across the group. The glymphatic system, the brain's overnight cleaning mechanism, requires deep, uninterrupted sleep to complete its protein clearance cycle. The SuperAgers who resist amyloid accumulation are the same SuperAgers whose sleep architecture, when measured, shows robust slow-wave sleep well into advanced age. They don't sleep longer, they sleep better, and they protect that sleep consistently.
So what does the evidence say you can do starting now to move toward the SuperAger trajectory? The research is clear that the window for intervention is not in your 70s. The structural brain changes that protect SuperAgers were being built in their 40s, their 50s, their 60s. The reserve they draw on at 80 was accumulated over decades of consistent behavior. That means the most powerful thing you can do right now, regardless of your current age, is start building reserve. Build cognitive reserve through effortful learning. Choose one genuinely difficult cognitive activity and pursue it consistently, Not casually, not comfortably, something that makes your brain work at the edge of its current capacity. A new instrument, a new language, a technical skill outside your professional domain. The discomfort is the mechanism. If it feels easy, change the challenge. Protect your social architecture. Invest in the relationships that require real emotional engagement. The research is consistent that surface-level social contact does not produce the same neural benefit as deep, complex social connection. Quality over quantity, depth over breadth. Make cardiovascular exercise non-negotiable. Moderate intensity, 30 minutes, 5 times per week, the threshold that appears most consistently across cognitive longevity research. Not elite performance, consistent maintenance of aerobic capacity, sustained across years and decades. Guard your deep sleep. Consistent sleep timing, same window every night, combined with a dark, cool sleeping environment. The glymphatic system runs its clearing cycle during slow-wave sleep. Every night you protect that cycle is a night your brain is doing its maintenance work. Every night you disrupt it is a night the proteins accumulate instead.
Let me bring this together and close out what we've been building across this entire cluster. Your brain starts losing volume in your mid-30s. The regions that shrink first are the ones you depend on most: memory, focus, decision-making. Brain fog is not stress. It's a measurable neurobiological state driven by neuroinflammation, gut-brain axis disruption, and mitochondrial dysfunction in neurons. All of it feeds the same system. But the SuperAgers show us that the other trajectory is real, that 80-year-old brains with the memory of 50-year-olds are not accidents. They are the result of decades of specific choices, effortful learning, deep social engagement, sustained cardiovascular fitness, and protected sleep that built enough neural reserve to withstand the damage that accumulates in everyone. The research doesn't say cognitive decline is inevitable. It says cognitive decline is the default outcome for people who don't actively build the reserve to resist it. The SuperAgers built the bridge, and they built it over decades, starting exactly at the age you are now. I've left a link in the description.